What is up, podcast people? Welcome to another day, another episode here with the Pod Squad. We got Kayla and Riley with us today.
I can't stop laughing.
Kayla is laughing when I sat in this chair, made a big ripping noise. I'm not fat, I promise. Or maybe this is the Lord telling me to.
The dating way.
This is
15 pounds, really hitting, boy.
This is what we're talking about today. Actually, the practicalities of life. When you start dating, you stop working out and you eat a lot of donuts.
I didn't stop.
That's true. That's true.
So when you sit in this chair, it kind of rips. But I'm pretty sure it's the Velcro.
I'm good.
Kayla, how you feeling today?
I'm good. I'm not laughing anymore.
You recovered? Riley, how you feeling today?
Good.
Dude, let's go.
Feeling jittery.
Jittery? Why are you feeling jittery?
That energy drink really hitting.
That you spilled all over the
Those
ground.
are like
spilled.
those Alani's, bro. I was at Walgreens getting those, and they didn't have Celsius. So Walgreens, we got to talk about that. And the cashier lady at Walgreens, she noticed I bought like 5 energy drinks. So she's like, "Man, are they good? Which one's the best out there?"
The purple
and then
one.
she walked me to the aisle of the energy drinks, and she started pointing to the Alani's. Am I saying that right, Alani?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. She started pointing to them. She's like, "Are these good? You know, somebody told me they really wake you up. They're a lot of energy." I'm like, "Girl, this is like water, pretty much. Like, there's not a lot of caffeine in them.
There's 100.
100
in this one.
milligrams.
The normal ones are
100 milligrams in that
But-
cute little. Show the bottle to the camera.
No, they're.
Yeah, that's a small bottle. It's like the size of your hand or can. It's not even a
You
bottle.
gotta be sponsored to show that stuff.
Yeah, sponsor us.
Sponsored by.
Yeah.
100 milligrams of
We gotta
caffeine.
blur
That's
out
like
the
a,
can.
That's like a cup of coffee. Like that's just like water.
But
That's
the
not doing much.
purple one tastes like Skittle water.
So it makes you, wakes you up even more because it tastes different.
So
Yeah,
good.
man, my heart is not feeling good.
So today, we are excited because we are cranked up, cracked out on some energy drinks, talking about adulting today. And yes, we are a bunch of young adults talking about adulting. So you're like, man, what do these people even know about adulting?
Nothing.
And I would say, we know nothing.
2 years old in adult world.
No, I would say, man, knowing all of our backstories and lives on where we're all each at and where we've been at to where we're at today. Yes, we are young, but there's a phrase, young but a lot of miles. Like a car. It's a new car, young, but it's got a lot of mileage on it. We've all, 3 of us here, me, Riley, and Kayla, all from different backgrounds, but definitely different experiences, which would age you a lot. So Riley's been married 2 years?
3.
3 years.
Ooh.
With
3 years
2
in
kids,
May.
right?
Yep.
Good
So
job.
how old are you?
I'm 24. Just
Okay.
turned 24 in April. Had my 3-year anniversary in May.
Let's
the end
go.
Of May. And my second son was born the beginning of May. So my birthday, like 6 days later, my second son's birthday, and then the anniversary shortly after. My first son, he was born in between my birthday and my second son's birthday. So I'm April 29th, he's May 2nd, and then my second son's May 10th.
Bro, the fact that you memorized all those dates, dad status up 10
Dad
points.
status.
Get your
Let's
dad-
go.
a dad
Grilling
hat.
skills are to the 9. Memory, I don't know. But
And
sure.
you just bought a house recently,
Just
right?
bought a house.
It's a big thing.
Yeah, closed the week before my second's
Mm-hmm.
my second son's birth. So crazy.
So 24, married for 3 years, homeowner, and 2 kids.
Yep.
So young, 24, but a lot of miles, a lot of life experience in there, and purchasing a home, having kids, being married for 3 years. Kayla, you and I, we've been engaged for 6 months.
Sure.
November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. 7 months.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
She's gonna be.
I'm glad you remembered that.
I already know the conversation right at the spot. Josh, you forgot how long we've been engaged.
I don't even
So I just want to
know.
ask for forgiveness right now publicly. Please forgive me.
Okay.
We got engaged back February 5th. So we've been engaged ever since February 5th. We just went under contract on a house.
We get married next month.
And we get married next month, and we'll close on a house next month. And also your background, you've been independent, doing life for yourself since you were 14, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you've been independent, so providing for yourself ever since 14 with
Yep.
house, food, water, shelter, all those things. So just a lot of, yes, young, but a lot of life
I
experience.
always say I'm like 80 in like a 22-year-old's body. And that's true because I pulled my neck on Friday.
That is very true.
Man.
So don't let the age fool you. Yes, there are a bunch of other young 20-year-olds that are way older, quote, older than us with life experiences. But I feel like we're at least in the middle of the pack or maybe even ahead a little bit. and ahead being not better than. So if you're 21 right now and you're like, man, I'm not married or don't have a house, I'm a loser. Like, no, we're not ahead of you from a quality standpoint or better than you standpoint. Just different life experiences. So don't let those lies capture you. So we just want to share some of the things that we have learned being a young adult, going through these things like having a kid and purchasing a home, and just the practicality of life, and then some biblical wisdom. We'll try to tie into it where we can. But let's start with Riley over here, man. Married for 3 years, having 2 kids. Man, what is something that you wish you would have known before having a kid? Or second kid. Like maybe you had, like somebody like, hey, somebody should have told me this advice before I was 22 years old having my first kid.
Yeah, I was 22. When you get married, yes, but when you have a kid, there is no room for selfishness, or at least good parents, shouldn't be selfish. That's that's true in terms of marriage, but you still have a lot of freedom. When you have a kid, that child cannot survive without your parenting, without your nurturing skills. So, I mean, that you got to say no to friends, and that's the thing. Like, I was young. I was 22 years old with my first kid. And so I still had a lot of friends that wanted to go out, do X, Y, Z, and my wife is 26 now. So at the time she was 24, I think. So she was not at a completely different stage of life, but she had already lived her younger 20s and was like satisfied.
Yeah.
I, in my position, did not. So I still had friends that, wanted to go out, and not going out like, hey, let's get drunk and,
just
smoke
to hang
some
out,
pot.
right?
Just
to
hang out.
Yeah.
I had to die to myself a lot, and the learning curve was pretty big for me, just because I so desperately wanted to hold on to that, because I grew up as a middle child. Shout out to middle children.
Hey, let's go.
Wait, are all of us middle?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
Shout
gosh,
out to all the middle child
we need to go to therapy.
Yeah, this is our therapy.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. So you guys know, middle children, you grow the heck up a lot faster than anybody else.
100%.
And you're the forgotten one. And this is very stereotypical. So
He starts crying mid-podcast.
if you are a middle child and you're not the forgotten, you're the chosen one, or whatever the case may be, amazing. That's
good for you.
For you.
Yeah.
But as the middle child, I had to grow up. And us being friends for so long, you kind of know my family dynamic. I was forced to grow up at a very early, young age. So in my early 20s, I was like, shoot, I'm not responsible but for nobody but me.
Yeah.
So this is my time to enjoy it. Now that it's weird, but I've made my bed and lied in it. I have to lie in it, meaning I got married young.
Yep.
We had a kid young. So I can't go now and be like, well, I just, I wasn't able to have fun, or I wasn't blah, blah, blah. No, you have responsibilities now.
Yeah.
So to answer the long answer to a very short question, learning to die to yourself immediately when you have a kid.
And that's a kid, but I would say that's also marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved her and gave himself up for her. Man,
this is in your sermon. You better.
It is in my sermon. I'm giving you like the paraphrase version, but let me give you the actual. What is it? Husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Ephesians 5:25. That as a husband, as a father, loving your wife, loving your children in the same way that Christ loves the church, and Christ gave himself up for the church, for us, like sacrificing everything for the betterment of your wife and of your children. So yeah, definitely a heads up out there.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, Kayla, same question coming over to you.
What was the question again?
What is something you wish you would have known before? Because your story's different.
Yeah.
right? You worked in Florida for a hot minute, then moved to Charlotte 2 years ago, moved on your own, being independent on your own with housing, food, water, shelter, like providing for yourself. What is something you wish you would have known before you moved into Charlotte, being a 21-year-old, 20-year-old,
I think it
21-year-old?
was 20.
A
when I moved
20-year-old
here.
moving from Florida to Charlotte all by yourself and then trying to get yourself set in Charlotte. What is one thing you wish you would have known?
Sounds so cheesy, but I was like, find community. Because, like, I told you, like, before, like, when I moved here, I was so, like, depressed. I hated Charlotte. I was like, there's only, like, Bojangles. Like, listen.
Shout out
okay.
to Bojangles.
No, but I was like, there's only Bojangles, breweries, and banks. Like, that was my biggest thing. I was like, I hate Charlotte. Like, I want to
But
go
she didn't
home.
even know about Bojangles.
We'll get to that on,
Okay,
like,
I
a
was about to say.
relationship
I was about
podcast.
to
We're not
say.
going to talk about it. But I hated it, and I refused to eat Bojangles. I was like, I ain't claiming North Carolina. I'm not eating it.
Did you try Bojangles before you wrote it off?
No, right when we first started dating, I
I
tried
introduced her to
Bojangles.
Bojangles,
Okay.
and she's hooked.
Yeah.
Can't get off
But
of
okay,
it.
Hey,
anyways,
it's bow time.
literally,
Let's go. Gotta want to need to get to have a Bojangles.
they have a
Not
song.
sponsored by Bojangles.
Do they have a song?
Bro, that was the Bojangles jingle. Like when they were sponsored with the Panthers back in like 2005. Shout out if you know that. Gotta wanna need to get to have a Bojangles.
They played it like after every
So
play.
easy enough. Moving to Charlotte resulted in me marrying Josh next month. But no, I hated it. And I would just say, like, well, the moving aspect was find, like, community. Like, it really wasn't until I started going to Three Strands to where I'm like, okay, wait, I'm not going to just quit my job in the middle of the day and move back to Florida, because my work moved me up here to take over opening up some locations here. And I was like, I'm going to leave it. I don't want to open up these locations. I want to be back in Florida. I want to be 10 minutes from the beach. I hate everybody here. I hate the breweries. I hate the Bojangles. I hate the banks. Like, I hate all of them.
Are you
And
saying
then
banks or bang?
banks.
Oh,
like,
okay. I
there's
thought-
Bank of America's everywhere. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing to do. Like, that's literally how I felt. And then cheesy enough, like, I found Three Strands on Instagram, and I showed up, and then I like didn't answer for like 2 months, and then I came back, and like I found community. But then that's like the from Florida to Charlotte answer of like what I'd recommend is obviously find community, like strong, godly community that can help guide your paths and all the ups and downs in life. And then like from just being so independent from 15 all the way to now would be like to not just like live and survive in the moment. I feel like I've always like survived in the moment, like day by day, just trying to like make the money, trying to do whatever I need to do to survive. And I never really like casted like the vision out of like more days or like getting married one day and like having to then like figure out my life from there. I was just like in like survival mode. And so I feel like sometimes like when you do come from like a weird background like I do, like you need to learn that once you get out of that survival mode, like you're no longer there and you need to like prep for life.
Yep.
So that's what I would like recommend.
Yeah, that's good. And I think it's one of the biggest pieces you can do now, whether if you're 18, 19 or in your 20s, is to prepare yourself for that stage of life you want to be in next.
Yeah, I
And do
think you need
everything
to-
you can to prepare yourself now for that.
You have to be so honest with yourself. I feel like a lot of times if people knew like my story, they would be like want me to victimize myself kind of. Just like, oh, you went through that. No, like that's not your life anymore. Like you can feel sad that you went through whatever you went through, but like this is a whole different path. Like I feel like people need to start casting a vision for themselves that's like way greater than their past and like pull out all the victim mentality of whatever, like that you weren't set up the same way that another person was and that's why they're more successful. Like no. Like it ends there. Like it ends when
Yep.
you move to the new state. It ends when you get the job, like wherever it is. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's good. Not having a victim mindset, but knowing that the world's going to keep spinning. Whether today was a great day or a terrible day, the next day is always coming.
Right. Yeah.
And changing your perspective with that.
Joshua, what is your advice?
I would say seriously, prepare yourself for the stage of life you want next. Like if you're single and you're like, man, now I'm praying for marriage, I want to be married. Okay, prepare yourself to be married. If you're, whatever, and you're like, man, I want to be a homeowner. Okay, prepare yourself to own a home. If you're like, okay, hey, I want this job, prepare yourself for that. Whatever that stage of life is, you're praying for and seeking after and desire. Prepare yourself for it. Like if you're want to be a homeowner, right?
Yeah. let's touch base on that preparation process.
Lord have mercy. Prepare yourself for that. Like, start right now working on your credit score. Start right now saving up money. Start right now. Like,
I feel like they need to know.
what?
It's got me so mad. I remember when you buy a house, you're obviously just easy numbers. The house is 100K. You're thinking, okay, that's like the price. And obviously there's going to be a down payment. There's something called like due diligence. Like you just have to give them
An
it's like-
escrow, due diligence,
all this
earnest
stuff.
money.
So Google that if you want to buy a house.
But seriously, all right. So this way you don't roll up to like, oh man, okay, I want to buy a house now, and then you go through that process, and you're like, okay, hey, your credit score is a 552, which means you're gonna have this interest rate. Like, prepare yourself now. Like, work on your credit score, save up money, or if you're like preparing for marriage, and you want to be married. Okay, prepare yourself spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally for that. If you're married and you want to have a kid, prepare yourself for that and be ready to know that I'm about to die to myself to serve these kids. Like, whatever that stage of life is next, that's something I wish I would have done better, was prepare myself for getting married, to owning a home, to not have a car payment, like to have stuff ready. So when that time comes for the thing you're praying for, it's like, okay, I was ready for it, and not like, oh crap, what do I do? And then you're trying to stumble along through it. So I'll say prepare yourself for that next stage of life. That's a big piece. And now, so let's pivot here. Riley, 2 kids, married for 3 years. Me and you were engaged, about to get married. What is something that, man, looking forward in 10 years, like, hey, this is what I've learned now to set myself up in 10 years. Does that make sense? Like, hey, as a dad or as a husband, or us as engaged, about to get married, about to buy this house, like, hey, let's make these decisions now so in 10 years we could be there. What are some of those decisions you were making today to get where you want to be in 10 years?
In terms of being a father and a husband, right now God's really working on me about how to be a godly man. And I love my dad. He was there. But because he had to work so much, I missed out on quite a bit on how to be a godly man. He is a godly man, don't get me wrong, but it was that practical tools and being in my life to that extent to be like, this is what you have to do in this, in terms of this situation. So it's understanding how to be a good father and good husband. So right now, what I'm doing is where I'm envisioning where I want Mateo and Malachi, where I want them to be when they come 18. And so I'm working backwards from that, being like, okay, I want them here. How do I get them there?
Yep.
So man school.
Man school.
Like,
I love it.
Bible study, just with me and them being the good father figure, the guy in their life where I can enable them, make them grow to the man. My cap is here. I want their floor to be my cap. And so figuring out how to translate that process in front of them is where I want to be in 10 years for them. In terms of my wife, understanding still and making sure my kids know that she came first.
Yeah.
So long after they're gone, it's just going to be me and my wife. And especially after having kids, maybe not everybody, but in our case, with us having kids so fast after marriage, we had a huge roommate phase. We were both young, had to die to ourselves a lot. FYI, Mateo was not planned, which is our first
He's going to watch
So
this in
Mateo,
like 18 years and be like, bro.
When you're watching this in 15 years.
Hey, it's
Love
the
you,
truth.
but
We cherish him so much, so deeply, and our team, because we envision as Christian marriages as a team on mission, and Mateo fulfilled a role, a hole in our team that God knew that we needed to fill. So we had a hole, and God said, Mateo is that hole filler for your team. So if you're listening to this 15 years later, you have a purpose, you have a role.
I love you.
And we are so thankful that you were blessed, or were blessed to be on this team. But understanding that once they leave, it's just her and I.
Yeah.
So going through that roommate phase, we had to relearn to love each other again. And that it was so incredibly hard, but trying to get on the same mission, the same person, the purpose, and same idea. So that's the term of marriage, and that's the term of kids in 10 years.
Man, that's good. Some good wisdom in there. I think it's a good principle to extract from it. Looking ahead and stating, hey, this is where I want the marriage to be or kids to be, or, you fill in the blank for whoever listening. Hey, this is where I want to be, or my family and people I have influence over. To be, now how can I work back to get there? Like if 10 years, okay, hey, you want to have a kid, you want to get the house, the job, the money, no, whatever, right? Take the vacation. Figure out what that goal is. Find a way to work back from it. So in 10 years, like you're ready for it, man. That's good. All right, Kayla, what are the decisions and choices you're making today? So in 10 years to hit that goal, whatever that goal may be, you're making those decisions today to help out that goal in 10 years.
I think there's like, I don't want to say like a biblical one, but like the putting in God's order is like something I think I'll continuously work on. I'm like 100% overthinker, overanalyzer, over panicker, over emotioner. Like if you can freak out about it, I'm gonna freak out about it. And Josh will yell at me and be like, all right, let's put it in God's order.
Okay,
and I'm like, all right.
I don't yell.
Okay, he doesn't yell at all. All right, but he'll gently tell me to put things in God's order, and I think that's always gonna be something that's gonna help me in life, and to do it now and be so rooted in understanding what his order is and why things are happening in life will really help you just be able to obey like the craziness that goes on in soon to be marriage and house buying and kids and all that stuff. And then just like as a personal thing, I would say, what was the question again?
What are some of the choices and decisions you're making today to help yourself in 10 years?
Trying to practice like not being selfish now before marriage and even before kids, like understanding that like sometimes when I don't want to do things, like I'm gonna have to, or like same thing, like we joke around like with my job, but like I obviously like I'm like, oh, I want to quit, and I joke around like that, but like that's something to where like I'm dying to myself to go to work to provide for a life that we both want right now, and like it allows us to do ministry, which is beautiful, and like that's why I wake up and go to work, is because not because it's the company or whatever it is, it's because like it's allowing us to do ministry. And so it's just practicing right now, like dying to yourself before marriage kind of. But then I can just see the fruit from it in the future of like going through the pains and going through like the not wanting to wake up or going through the not wanting to have like these tough conversations. I can just see that like they're pruning for something way greater in the future. And so it's just like embracing the suck at every moment you can, because it's just going to help you in the long run when the suck is a lot, you know?
Yeah. There's a good principle, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Right. But keeping that broader principle, right, or that broader perspective to know, hey, the reason why I'm doing this is for a kingdom purpose, right? And I think that can speak to a lot of people who are not in vocational ministry, like you are not paid on staff at a church to do ministry. But you can have the perspective and heart posture to say, hey, I'm still going to do this job because doing this job helps pay for car insurance and, food in the pantry, which then frees you up to do ministry.
But
right?
then I think that connects too with like the understanding God's order and purpose is like, we talked about this in the last podcast about your calling into ministry, but I think it's like, don't be so set on your own job. Like you could want to be the CEO of whatever company and God doesn't want you there. Like, or you could want to be a pastor and like full-heartedly run to that and God doesn't want you there. Like your ministry could be working wherever and preaching the gospel to your coworkers and not in vocational ministry. But to relate that back to like this topic is like, you need to obey and you need to use wisdom, but like stop putting your plans in cement over God's plans of everything else. And like walk in wisdom, but walk in faith with like his true plan and not everything set in concrete for your life. That's
good, man. And that'll get a lot of people, a lot of us, with a different joyful perspective about the schooling, right? Going through classes in college, going through jobs that we don't like, but remembering this purpose, like, hey, even though I don't like this class or I don't like this job, I am doing this because it allows me in some way, shape, somehow to do some type of ministry. So not lose that focus, for sure. I would say to kind of land the plane with this episode, man, to always remember the order, like God's order. You kind of hit that. Like if we as young adults, even today, could do it today, and also in 10 years, if we can remember to keep our life in a biblical order, man, that will change everything. You talk about peace, joy, love, like a non-stressful household, like remembering a biblical order. We here at Still Creek are kind of discipleship track, discipleship plan, and kind of biblical order we see for humanity starts with our relationship with Christ. That no matter what you do, the first thing you do is starts with Jesus as the foundation for anything. And then the first people that should be affected or benefiting from your relationship with Jesus should be people in your home. And then the first people that should be affected off of, believers have a healthy home should be the church. The church should benefit from people having a healthy home. But if there's not a healthy home, like if people show up to the church to serve the church, but they just got in a fight Sunday morning over pancakes or, waffles, and now they show up angry to the church because, the husband forgot to pay the gas bill and there's a fight over pancakes and waffles, so they show up to serve the church, but they're angry and bitter. Now the church is unhealthy. And then if the church is unhealthy, then the worldly vision to, evangelize, spread the gospel to anybody and everybody. Well, if the church is unhealthy, that means the vision to serve the world is not going to be fulfilled at its greatest. But all that can continue to build off of a foundation with Jesus. And personally, that looks like, man, to always remembering to, okay, hey, look, not blurring lines between ministry and family, not blurring lines between family or your home, right? Your relationship with your spouse, with your relationship with God, like having strict boxes or strict pillars, if you will, of like, hey, this is where it starts. It starts with Jesus. And then on top of that, now my home, right? Let me get the home in order. And that's finances, relationships, people, friends, reconciliation, like just everything in your home. And then from that home, pointing to the church and now serving the church. So if you can do those three things and always remember those four things, that biblical order, and always assessing those and growing in those, I mean, I think that sets us all up in an amazing posture to mature. It sets us up in 10 years to mature, that if we have a strong relationship with Jesus, which then affects our homes, which then affects the church, which then affects the world, and then maintaining that order, Christ Home Church World, man, that is something, if you're listening right now, to evaluate, man, hey, where's your relationship with Jesus? And then is that positively infecting your home, your brothers, your sisters, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, finances, stewardship, all that stuff? And if it's not, you need to evaluate that. Because then you may be going up to the church and not serving a healthy church, which affects God's people. So if that's an order, man, we can maintain. I think we'll thrive. We'll be awesome. You guys have any parting thoughts of wisdom? We got a minute 40 seconds. We're on our timer. We got a minute 40.
Bet, let's spit it.
Spit it.
To add on to that, it goes further than just the 10 years, like you were saying. That impacts your generations to come. Your grandchildren will reap those benefits that you put into practice, that you go to war in your quote unquote prayer closet. Those principles, those steps that order that you want to instill in your life, that God orders us via the Bible, manifests itself in your family generations to come. And no shade, but Billy Graham, one of the greatest evangelical Christian preachers to ever step foot in America, his kids were like, I didn't even recognize him when they came home, when he came home. And not saying that he was an unbiblical man or whatever the case may be, not even suggesting that he did things unordered, but just keeping in mind we have to be intentional about that order, and we can't let our ministry take place of the family. So, yeah.
Man, that's good. That's good.
Good recap.
Well, appreciate you guys hopping on today for our episode. Hopefully, you guys listening out there maybe just got a nugget of wisdom about adulting. Prepare yourself for that next life season. Keep your life in biblical order and serve Jesus, and keep Jesus as the foundation. And we will catch you on the next week's episode. Adios.